Hi friends, how do you decide which legend to main in Apex Legends Season 9? In this video, I'm going to talk you through some of the things that you need to consider when deciding which legend to main. Whether you've been playing since Season 0 or you've just started, it's always good to think about which legend is the best pick for you to main. Now it's okay if you already have a legend. This video should help you either confirm that you've got the right legend or maybe even consider making you change to a better suited legend for you. If you're new to Apex and you're not quite sure what a main is, it's basically where you pick a legend that you will always play with. This legend should suit your playstyle and will ultimately help you win more games in Apex Legends. Now it's normally good to start with one main, but you can definitely expand that to have 2 or 3. For example, I main Loba, but for ranked I always main Bloodhound. The way to use this video guide is listen to the categories I talk about and simply pick your style, and this will help you determine the right legends for you. Really think hard about your natural instincts. So here are the categories. We've got offensive, defensive or balanced. You are an offensive player if you're more aggressive naturally. You're the kind of person that shoots first and thinks later. You gotta ask yourself, do you spend less time looting and more time rotating towards fights? Are you usually the first to run into a fight? If the answer is yes, then this means you're an offensive player. On the flip side, you're a more defensive player if you like to take more time looting and have a more considered approach to fights. Also, if you prefer to hold positions rather than constantly rotating, perhaps you're the one that holds back in a fight and you land shots from distance rather than pushing deep into a fight, then you have a more defensive type of mindset. The third category of balanced is for those of you that are kind of in the middle. Sometimes you'll be the first to run into a fight, but generally you'll remain cautious when you do push into a fight, and there'll be those occasions where you prefer to be more defensive and hold a position rather than pushing aggressively. From a personal point of view, I think I fit in this balanced category. Now if your answer is that you fit in the offensive category, then there are quite a few legends that you can pick. You've got Wraith, Octane, Horizon, Revenant, Bangalore, Pathfinder and Fuse that are all a great fit for you if you sit in the offensive category. Wraith is great because her tactical and ultimate give you invincibility for a set amount of time. This makes it perfect if you like to push hard into fights but then need a way out to heal up. Octane's speed, health regen and team movement capabilities mean you can really get into and out of fights very quickly. Horizon's aerial movement and ultimate ability means you can pull enemies close together and get to high ground to take an offensive advantage. Pathfinder also gives you similar movement to these legends in that he can use his grapple or zipline to push into a fight from distance. Like I said, all of these legends give you great individual movement abilities but also really great team movement capability. If you're an offensive player but also are more focused on movement capability, then one of these legends is definitely best for you. Looking at the other legends in the offensive category, we've got Revenant, Bangalore and Fuse. Now these legends will suit you if you're still offensive. Perhaps you rely less on movement capability and more on your abilities to deal damage or help you push quickly. Revenant's totem allows him to push strongly without the risk of dying on your first push. So Revenant's for those of you that maybe don't hit all of your shots on your first push, but it gives you 2 opportunities to push a team. Fuse can also use his offensive abilities to deal damage and leave enemies weaker during an offensive play. Fuse is great for you if you're the kind of offensive player that wants to deal a little bit of damage first as you push into a team. Bangalore is a little bit more on the fence because her passive does give her some extra movement abilities, but in general, her passive, her tactical and her ultimate are really great when attacking or retreating, and this gives her really great offensive abilities. One important thing to remember if you do fit in this offensive category is to remember there's a difference between being offensive versus being reckless. Running straight into a full squad that has a strong position and good loot all alone just because you're an offensive player is not smart, and it's very rare that you'll win those battles. So you can still be offensive, but be smart about it when you're pushing teams. Offensive players are often the first to rotate, so as an offensive player you should be the one that's making the calls to your team. You need to let your team know where you're moving and get them to move with you, because sometimes your team might not have the same offensive thoughts as you, so just make sure they know what you're doing. Let's move on to the balance category. So if your answer was balanced, then you've got Loba, Mirage, Lifeline, Gibraltar, Bloodhound and Valkyrie all as great options if you feel you fit in the balance category. Loba is actually my main, and she gives you really great support with her ultimate. And this allows you and your team to get really good loot and also never be short of ammo when you need it. Her tactical is also really strong this season, meaning you can get between areas very quickly. Overall, this gives Loba a great balanced feel, and you can definitely use her offensively and defensively in a supportive kind of way. Mirage is also a really great option for balanced players. Plus, Mirage's passive means you can help your enemy team in a supportive way through the cloaked revives and cloaked respawns. Lifeline and Gibraltar both sit in the balance category because they're both great healers, but also have other abilities that mean you can be offensive in some situations. I would definitely say they are on the more defensive side though of the balance category. Their focus is more to be supportive and help out their teammates. Gibraltar is particularly a good pick if you're willing to take the brunt of your enemy's fire. Don't forget, Gibraltar's a bigger legend with a bigger hitbox than most of the other legends, much like Caustic. This means you will take more bullets, so you need to be aware and willing to do that as a Gibraltar main. Bloodhound is a legend that's more on the offensive side of the balance category, but can be really strong in many situations. Their ability to scan and see enemies through walls is really strong, in addition to the movement capabilities you get with the ultimate. Bloodhound's abilities are best suited to anyone who needs more information around players to stay ahead of them, and as a Bloodhound, you should definitely be willing to communicate with your team where the enemies have moved to. Valkyrie is the last in the balance category, and she has a great balance using her jetpack and tactical for more offensive situations, along with her ultimate that lets you reposition in more defensive situations. I would say as a balanced player, you're probably not always the first into a fight. You'll likely let your offensive player push first, and then you'll follow in quickly afterwards. That's not actually a bad thing, it gives you time to think and assess the situation. This means when you're pushing with your offensive player, you should be the one that's calling out to your offensive player the landscape of where the enemies are. Now let's look at the defensive category. Then you've got Crypto, Rampart, Watson and Caustic to choose from. Now Crypto could be in the balance category, but you'll often find that Crypto's really good for surveying situations, but because he has to use his drone and he's static while he's using it, he's often a little bit behind the pack. And this kind of fits in more with a defensive mindset, because you'll constantly be behind your teammates, offering a supporting role from behind. Rampart, Watson and Caustic are all very similar in that they offer some form of defensive zoning ability, and because of this they're really great for defending areas. Caustic is the legend to pick if you're mainly concerned with helping other teammates during firefights. Caustic's skills can be used to augment more offensive legends. If you're a more defensive player, then you are likely at the back of your squad, so you need to make sure your flank is covered, block off the areas and buildings where possible, and call out to your team what it's like from a defensive situation. Having said that, defensive doesn't mean you don't get into fights. If your team is in a fight, then you definitely need to be there supporting them. It just means you need to consider zoning areas and making that area safe for your team while you're in a fight. One really important thing to keep in mind is that any legend can be used for any situation, and this creates my final category, the Outliers. You're an outlier if you like to use the legends differently to how most people perceive them. For example, if you have an offensive mindset, but you still use Watson because her movement animations help you when strafing, and her fences can zone enemies in an offensive way. Now if you do fit this outlier category, I would strongly encourage you to flip the categories that I've previously mentioned, and this is where you consider the legends I've got in the defensive and balanced categories as offensive legends, and perhaps offensive legends as more balanced or defensive legends. As an outlier, you'll have the right mindset to utilize these legends in different ways, and in many respects this can give you an advantage because, put simply, enemy teams won't be expecting these legends, such as a Watson, to operate in that kind of offensive way. Hopefully this guide helps you to think about who might be the best legend for you to main in Apex Legends Season 9. The best way to do it, if you're still not sure, is to try each of the legends in your chosen category a few times to really see who feels best for you. Good luck! Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.